We have some breaking news from Yemen, where the Saudi-backed coalition has launched several airstrikes targeting southern separatists in the province of Hadramout. It comes hours after the governor of Hadramout announced an operation to reclaim military positions seized by the separatist Southern Transitional Council last month. In response, the STC launched an attack against the forces of Yemen's UN-recognized government, where
This operation does not target any political or social group, nor does it target the citizens or affect their lives or interests in any way. This operation is not a declaration of war or an attempt to escalate tensions, but rather a responsible preventive measure to neutralize weapons, prevent chaos, and use of camps as tools to threaten Hadramaut and its people.
Now we've got several guests with us. Here in the studio is Ali Hashim. In Sana'a is Yusuf Maori, and we've also got Ibrahim Jalal joining us from London. I'm going to begin with you, Ali. A serious escalation in the last few hours. Just take us through what happened.
Well, in fact, the beginning of this military operation that was described as a peaceful operation by the government. Now, the issue is that it comes just 24 hours after the last Emirati left the Rayyan air base in Yemen. And also, it stresses the idea that the government itself and its backers, Saudi Arabia mainly, are keen to end this situation. Now, how are they going to do that? Do they have the means? Is it enough to have air cover to finish such a kind of an attack? But it doesn't seem. It seems that we are heading towards an extended civil war, just adding to the other layers of civil war that's been going on in Yemen for more than a decade. So the issue right now is really alarming, and everyone is alarmed, not only within Yemen, because first of all, the first receivers of this situation are the people of Yemen. They are the ones suffering. But also on the borders of Yemen, there are other states, other countries that are alarmed by whatever is happening.
Well, let's go to Yusuf Maori now. Yusuf, you're in Sana'a. Just take us through what you felt, what you thought when you heard the news. Were you surprised that this escalation was taking place?
Well, actually, there's a lot of buzzwords that rang too familiar because we're used to covering the war between the Arab coalition targeting Ansarallah Houthi positions since 2015. But now we're using, we're recycling the same terms that were used against the Ansarallah here in Sana'a. And now it's being directed, between the UAE STC-backed southern government and also the internationally recognized Yemeni government. So it's very, very interesting. The situation is developing rapidly. Needless to say, we have the official closure of the Aden airport. This is according to Yemen's transport minister, the STC, Yemen's transport minister. He basically announced that Saudi Arabia has announced and fully imposed a air blockade. He calls it an air blockade on Aden airport. This is following an airstrike, a Saudi-led airstrike that targeted the Al-Khasha military base in Hadramout. And this was a military base that was used and housed by the STC UAE-backed forces. So a lot is happening on the ground. You have basically a war. This is a war for control. The UAE-backed Yemeni government against the Saudi-backed Yemeni government, and the arena for this clash is taking place in the south of the country, mainly in Hadramout, in Mukalla, where you just have 10 minutes ago we had breaking news that there's a full-scale clash between both sides of the conflict. It's relatively quiet here in Sana'a, which we are not used to. We're definitely not used to seeing this much war and clashes, especially between two allies who joined together in 2015 to wage an all-out war against the Ansarallah. Obviously, they failed to defeat Ansarallah, and now they seem to be going at each other's necks for control of the south of the country. It's very obvious. We know that the southern separatists, what they want is an independent southern state.
Yusuf, there's a few points that you've made there that we need to get into, and I'm going to bring in Ibrahim Jalal here. Ibrahim, to the casual observer, the fact that the UAE and Saudi Arabia are on opposite sides of this fight is going to come as a surprise. So just talk us through the players as you see them.
Yeah, thank you. The divergence between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates is not new. What is new is the unprecedented level of the rupture between them. And one of your guests noted that this might be the first time that two allies fought each other. In fact, not. It's been a story that's dragged since January 2018, just 8 months after the formation of the STC itself. We've had January 2018 developments and then protests and the first armed rebellion in August 2019, and then the institutionalization of a web of patron-client relationship networks after the Riyadh agreement. Now what we have is the STC aligned members within the Presidential Leadership Council who are within the Emirati camp. They have fully sided with the STC's eastward push. And on the other hand, you have the President Al-Alimi and 3 other members who have established clear demands, which are also backed by both Oman and Saudi Arabia, who share national security threat perceptions. The timing of this is beyond Yemen. It's a moment when territorial reordering in conflict-affected states in Yemen, Sudan, Somalia is experiencing an attempt to impose realities as fait accompli in a way to advance geostrategic and geoeconomic interests, but also at the expense of these very populations who continue to aspire for stability, order, and prosperity. And one of the most interesting dynamics that has emerged is also the hardening public rhetoric by particularly the STC. On the one hand, we've seen increased use of Muslim Brotherhood tags, ACAP instrumentalization to justify the
Sorry, Ibrahim, I'm going to stop you there because you've made. I just want to, if you can just explain to us what ACAP is.
Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. So we've been seeing the instrumentalization of extremist groups to justify targeting and expanding territorially. And this rhetoric, unfortunately, is further adding layers of complexity, weakening further the social fabric, and adding, as one of your other guests noted, deepening the multi-layered aspect of the Yemen conflict. But most certainly, what we're seeing now may start in Hadramaut, but it might not necessarily stop there. You have the same concerns in al-Mahra.
It's a very good point that you make, and I'm just going to come to our correspondent, Ali Hashim, here in the studio. It's going to get worse. We heard from Saleh Al-Noud, who was the former spokesperson of the STC just an hour ago, saying that the STC senses an opportunity here, and they are going to push for this. They're going to push for this hard. What's the background of that opportunity?
Well, mainly the opportunity here is to go towards separation, to have the state, the southern state, which has been a dream for decades, to restore this state. Now, yeah, I mean, just as the guest was saying, it's a moment. It's a different moment and instrumental in recalibrating the whole region. The post-Gaza war changed everything, as we were saying. It changed the perception of national security within big states in the region. It changed also the way small players are regarding the possibilities and the potentials that they can build on. As he said, it's an opportunity. So these are all issues that are taken into consideration. Plus, there is something that we have to just look at, which is the differences between the main players. Here, we're talking about Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. Yes, it's been going on for a long time. They had differences since 2017 in Yemen and later on other issues. But today, there is a reason why the Saudis decided to go openly and declare that there is a real problem. They've been always trying to cover these differences, given the fact, the idea of Gulf unity, Arab unity, and also the presence of the regional rival, Iran. So everyone should unite against Iran.
About that.
But now it's different.
Let's talk about Iran. I want to bring in Yusuf Masri here. Yusuf, there seems to be an opportunity the STC are taking. Iran has been weakened. And the STC seem to be taking opportunity that the UAE backing the STC is also taking advantage of this weakened Iran. When it comes to the Houthis, who are backed by Iran, what are they going to do next? Is there any options for them?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. And I was just wanting to get into that, actually, because despite whatever happens in the South, and let me just say, whether the STC is successful in achieving their goal, which at the top of those goals is establishing an independent southern state, or whether the internationally recognized Saudi-backed Yemeni government is successful in case driving out the UAE-backed STC forces, I think it comes down to the Ansarallah Houthis here in Sana'a, because you have three players on the ground, and the strongest player on the ground is actually the Ansarallah movement, the ones who are in control of most of the provinces, the ones who are in control of the capital Sana'a, the ones who have successfully, many would say, defeated the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the Saudi-led Arab coalition war that was launched in 2015. I can tell you that if the STC is successful in establishing an independent southern state, it's not going to be accepted by the Ansarallah movement. And in fact, the Ansarallah leader, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, he mentioned that the movement is not going to allow any square inch of Yemen under Saudi-backed forces or UAE-backed forces. That's where the big war is going to come into play. That's where you will see a full-scale war between North and South. So it's really, really interesting that you have both parties, the UAE and the Saudi-backed Yemeni government, the STC, fighting amongst each other, when the elephant in the room is, what are they going to do with the Ansarallah movement, who exercises power and is able to exert power in most of the provinces across Yemen, not to mention they have the most sophisticated ballistic missile system in the region. This is a group that has hypersonic missiles. This is a group that has fighter jets. They're able to strike either the STC forces or the internationally recognized Yemeni government if need be. That's what it's going to come down to.
Ibrahim, I want to bring you in here. There is a case study that has been seen before. Libya comes to mind. Post-Gaddafi, Libya split into three very distinct chunks. There was almost a full-scale civil war, certainly a very political civil war going on here. This isn't going to happen overnight. Yemen is going to be dragged into a fight that's going to take a very long time with no guarantee of winner, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Yemen has been entangled in 7 years of armed conflict, and in about 3-ish years of no peace, no war situation. Now, breaking this deadlock might have been one card to reshuffle and reimagine how things are developing. The question of whether now the Saudi-backed, Yemeni government and nation-shield forces can recapture both Hadramaut and al-Mahra, I think, is a question of time. The demands have been there for a month, actually, as of today, a month, 30 days, since they first pursued patient diplomacy, and then eventually went on a calibrated escalation trajectory so as to anchor and reinforce these demands. They have sidelined the UAE, as we've seen with the latest rupture and the latest exposure on the arms shipments. And this means that the support that the STC might have enjoyed with air cover in 2019 that prevented the government from capturing Aden when they were by the gates of Al-Alam, which is the entry point into Aden, is no longer there. And that was under the cover of the Arab coalition. But again, the STC has also grown in in terms of its capabilities. It has received advanced drones. It has trained under, of course, its regional patron, its forces. So it's not on the same level of strength. But this is an obvious game. You cannot threaten two bordering states at the same time.
I mean,
it's a high gamble.
You say it's a gamble. You say it's an obvious game. I want to bring in Ali Hashim here. Ali, the UAE relies on international workers coming in. The Houthis, as Yusuf said, have hypersonic missiles. They have a capability. They've struck Tel Aviv. They have made, life very difficult for the Israelis. A bomb that rains down on Dubai is going to destroy Dubai's economy if this escalates to that point. So you have to ask yourself, what is the UAE's driving force here? What politically? Let's forget about what I just said about the war. That's, something that might happen. But what's the driver here politically?
Well, we have to take into consideration the fact that, and what Ibrahim was saying about the hypersonics, and you said they hit Tel Aviv. Yes, Yemen is not anymore a Yemeni question. Yemen right now is a regional question. And it's actually, there are international players, and we saw actually the United States waging a war also on Sana'a. So the idea here is who is going to control Yemen will have a say in part of the regional game. I mean, who controls Yemen will control the Red Sea or part of the Red Sea and will be able to either give security assurances to Israel or deny Israel security assurances. So it's bigger than Yemen. And actually, the wars in Yemen were always a regional issue. The war in Yemen led to Abdel Nasser's defeat in 1967 because he was overwhelmed by the war over there. And the war in Yemen that brought Shah of Iran to ally himself with the Saudis in 1961, which is the same war then. And the war in Yemen is today bringing Saudi Arabia and the Emirates face to face. So part of what the Emiratis are maybe pushing forward is related to their alliances also. It's why today we see Israel recognizing Somaliland and why we see Emirat not signing the condemnation of such a decision. So these are all related, these are all intertwined, and yes, Yemen is not anymore a Yemeni question. Yemen is a regional question that is going to slip over everywhere.
It's a very good point. Let's put it to Yusuf. Yusuf, Yemen is no longer about Yemen anymore. It's a regional issue. And at the heart of that seems to be the Red Sea corridor and the battle for influence of that. What do you think of that? Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree, especially since Netanyahu, during his UN visits where he's showing the map of a corridor that Israel wants to establish, and it goes directly through the south of Yemen. And I think your previous guest, he touched up on it that, depending, if you want to know what the agenda is, what the goal of the UAE is, just look at its allies, look at who it is allying with. We know that the UAE is becoming a stronger and stronger ally of Israel. And we know that Israel is not going to be blunt enough to directly intervene to try to cause a division between north and south of Yemen. So it could be possible that they could just use and leverage the UAE to do their bidding for them. I think a lot of political experts, they believe this to be the case. And I think Saudi Arabia, the reason why they're stepping in right now is because a divided Yemen, a north and south, is just simply not in the best interest of Saudi Arabia. We have to really start looking at the map the way that perhaps four nations are trying to divide Yemen, similar to the Sykes-Picot Agreement, back in the 1920s, where they divided the Middle East, and each state was impositioned with a government that catered to the interests of either France or Britain or some other Western power. I think this is a smaller case that's happening in Yemen. Whether Yemen is divided, who is the south of Yemen going to be aligned with most? Are they going to provide carte blanche security for all Israeli shipping through the Red Sea. It does come down to this. You have to also question
I mean, it's a very good
decision
point
of Israel to officially announce that they will recognize.
You make about the shipping. Ibrahim, I want to bring you in here. Control of the Red Sea corridor. That seems to be where the region is worried about. Saudis worried about this is happening in their backyard, so their sphere of influence is why they're involved. But the UAE, not so much. I mean, what does the UAE get out of this? The similar question I ask Ali. What does the UAE get out of this?
So there are two visions in the region. One, and as Andreas Craig notes, that there is an axis of secessionists, and then there are, a parallel process that focuses on collaborating with the Westphalian state as it is, with legitimate governments. The model in which you have obvious engagement with fragmented states, you have the opportunity to exploit the vacuum, the need for international recognition, but also in a way that reflects on your ability to, first of all, deepen your geopolitical partnerships on the global arena when it comes to shipping, trade and energy security. Second, on advancing geoeconomic interests, in which case you have Dubai World Ports, which has a global footprint. And third of all, you have power projection. And power projection has been key. In fact, if you look into the UAE's African Horn footprint, it started under the Arab coalition to support its operation in Yemen. That was the story in Asab, Eritrea. That was the story in Barbara and Bosaso in Somalia. And this footprint comes down to also advancing shared interests with other geopolitical partners, including Israel. But let me go back actually to anchor just 3 points. One, the perception that the Houthi is invulnerable has been shattered just over the past months. Second, the idea of the Southern cause, which the STC cites, and the STC is one of many actors, does not enjoy uniform support. Hadramaut, for instance, does and has been advocating for greater autonomy, greater share of wealth and power. And the historical legacies, especially under Yemen Socialist Party in the 1960s, it did have actually left significant pain that time has not successfully healed within the Hadrami society. And that's key to understand, because, the imposition, the STC says that, the idea of unification has been imposed. And now what we see is the reproduction and imposition of narratives on Hadramis themselves. And I think here there is a call for a Hadrami dialogue, a call for, the resumption of Southern dialogue, because stability, whether you consolidate or
Ibrahim,
not.
I'm just going to stop you there because I want to bring these points to both our other guests as well. Ali, I'm going to start with you here. War is always about inches. It's about fighting for territory. Today, we have a situation where if they can get al-Mahra back, if they can defeat the STC in Hadramout, then that might change in a very short term the face of this conflict. But the STC, as we've known, as we've heard from STC representatives, from former STC representatives, they feel that they have the backing right now. So if this is a battlefield today, do you think that if they get Hadramout, if they get al-Mahra, then that changes the battlefield?
Well, the idea that getting Hadramout or getting al-Mahra just like that is impossible. It's something really very, very difficult. And for now, we are outside. We were not inside Yemen. I do not claim to know what's going on the ground. So what I think is that what we are just witnessing right now is just the beginning of a very long war. How much is there possible? Because both sides have their own supply chains. So weapons are going to pour inside. more people are going to die, and this is not going to end except with a regional compromise or a kind of a consensus or a deal whenever the major backers are going to reach a deal. And now there's also another question. You were asking your guest from Sana'a on who the Houthis are going to stand with. Yes, I mean, there is a big question here. I don't think that the Houthis will have the luxury to just watch all the time, because when the moment comes and there is a real threat that Yemen is going to be divided into two countries, we might see Saudi Arabia and, or let me say, elements allied with Saudi Arabia getting closer to the Houthis and fighting together the same battle. It's not something impossible, because that time those who are behind the united Yemen are going to unite, even if they have big differences, especially that when it comes to the regional situation, Iran and Saudi Arabia are right now closer than Saudi Arabia than the Emirates.
War does make a strange bedfellows. Yusuf, I want to bring you in here, because what we're witnessing right now is the beginning of a war that has taken many people who don't take Yemen seriously, who probably don't understand Yemen and the regional powers that we've all talked about today. So this is yet another war in the Middle East. And to understand that, most people think about wars in the Middle East as being about oil, about resources, but this one seems to be just about having influence in the Red Sea. Is it as simple as that?
I think just based on the events that have unfolded over the past 2 years, the Gaza war, the Gaza genocide, and I think Yemen played the most critical role, which was in imposing a full, successful blockade on all Israeli shipments. For 2 years straight, Israel was not able to ship anything through the Red Sea. When they attempted to cross the Red Sea, when they attempted to go under a different flag, under a Singapore or a Greek flagship, the Ansarallah Houthis, they were able to penetrate those intelligence and radars, and they were able to sink many of these Israeli shipping ships and cargo ships and vessels and whatnot. I think it was 6 vessels that were linked to Israel that the Ansarallah Houthis successfully targeted with a hypersonic missile. Now, we believe in that there's a greater plan. Israel has a plan to establish a greater Israel. They cannot establish a greater Israel if they don't have full access to the Red Sea. They cannot be hindered. They cannot be impeded crossing the Red Sea. So I believe, this is my opinion, I believe that Israel is acting now, and I think with the announcement that they will recognize Somaliland as a separate independent state, and also this latest attempt to try to divide Yemen so they can, through their ally, the UAE, secure the south of the country. I think that will secure
Yusuf, we are running out of time, and I want to just disturb you because I want to
then that puts them in a better position.
I want to put some of your points to our other guests. Ibrahim, I'm going to come to you first. Let's talk about international diplomacy here. Who are the players here that can bring the sides together? Is it the US? Is the US an honest broker here, do you think?
On Yemen?
On Yemen.
Between Yemen. Saudis and... No one. This is national security concern for both Saudi Arabia and Oman, as well as the idea of the survival of the Yemeni state in its current borders. And therefore, the US has attempted actually to push for de-escalation, which has extended the timeline for the implementation of military measures a little bit, but it has not succeeded because it comes down to obvious and straightforward positions, demands, and interests. And this is the withdrawal. And if you look at the terrain of Hadramaut, it's open. The STC entered quick. A military operation there can not be a protracted one. And the outcomes of this, if the Saudis and Omanis and the Yemeni government are fully committed to restoring control of the military bases and restoring order and stability, it is achievable. But I think what comes after this is the tougher question, because whether you can actually control the geography of the conflict itself is one. The second, when would the Saudis especially entertain the idea now of reordering
Ibrahim,
the
I'm going to stop
political
you.
map and the spheres of influence?
I'm going to stop you there because it's a very interesting point that you make. Let's talk about diplomacy, Ali. At some point, all wars come to an end, and they come to an end diplomatically. But I can't see an obvious, honest broker, a diplomat here that can bring all sides together. Can you?
Well, the fact that there are several players that are trying to get people on the table, for now, it's very early to say, but in the past few weeks, the Omanis were playing a big role. I know of visits by STC to Muscat. A Saudi security team was in Muscat also in the past weeks. And there are attempts to kind of convey messages from here to there. And also, the Omanis already have their own national security concerns. The borders are not safe over there, and they have influence in Al-Mahra in a way or another. So they might be able to play, but at the same time, they are involved. They're involved because their national security is threatened. Also, of course, Qatar is always playing roles in diplomacy. So it's going to be a regional diplomacy more than being an international diplomacy to solve such a problem, because regionally they understand each other's more.
But the problem is, of course, is that currently it's the UAE and the Saudi Arabia that are on opposite sides of this who are effectively the region. I want to thank all our guests, Ali Hashim here in the studio, Ibrahim Jalal, who is our Yemen analyst, who joins us from London. But I have a very, very quick question for Yusuf Mauri. Yusuf, very quickly, you've only got a few seconds to go, but is there a diplomatic solution that's obvious to you?
There's no diplomatic solution. There's really just no easier way to say this. The only ones who are going to get what they want is the power on the ground. Whoever has power on the ground, whoever is able to exert power and take over control of areas, that's who this battle is going to decide who the winner or
Yusuf
the loser
Mauri,
is.
I want to thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank all our guests for joining.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.